sessão plenária 1 está prestes a iniciar-se. Antes disso, e enquanto se compõe também o palco para poder receber o moderador e também os palestrantes, os painelistas deste próximo momento, é importante dizer que o Encontro da Ciência e Inovação 2026 marcará a realização do primeiro grande evento da Agência para a Investigação e Inovação, a AI ao quadrado. A chamada para a apresentação de propostas de temas para debate registou uma adesão significativa da comunidade, com 206 submissões entre 26 de maio e 16 de junho. As propostas serão organizadas em 20 sessões, distribuídas por 6 macroáreas: digital, saúde, ambiente e território, indústria e energia, sociedade e ecossistema de ciência e inovação. As submissões envolveram mais de 1.200 participantes e cerca de 1.000 organizações distintas. As unidades de ID participaram em 96% das propostas seguidas das empresas, com 63%, das associações de diferentes tipos, com 49%, e da administração pública, com 44%. Recordo que, dentro de momentos, vai começar a primeira sessão plenária. Peço aos participantes que se mantenham nos seus lugares. Dentro de momentos, retomamos. Prosseguimos de seguida, então, com a sessão plenária 1, dedicada ao tema Prioridades para a Ciência e Inovação. A sessão inicia-se com uma apresentação da professora Maria do Rosário Partidário, Coordenadora Científica da Metodologia ST4S. Seguir-se-á um debate com o painel de convidados e de um período de perguntas e respostas com o público. Informamos que esta sessão decorrerá integralmente em língua inglesa. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our moderator, Teresa Pinto Correia, Vice President for Research at the Agency for Research and Innovation. Joining her on stage, please welcome Professor Maria do Rosário Partidário, Scientific Coordinator of the ST4S Methodology. We also invite our distinguished panelists to join the discussion. Carolina Nogueira, Deputy Director of PLANAPP, Professor Luís Ferreira, President of the Council of Rectors of Portuguese Universities, Professor Orlando Rodrigues, Member of the Coordinating Council of Portuguese Polytechnic Higher Education Institutions, Ana Casaca, Member of the Board of the European Innovation Council, and Philippe Laroux from the OECD, Commission for the Evolution of the Reform of Education, Science and Innovation.
Good morning, everyone. It is my great pleasure to chair this session, this panel, which is about priorities for research and innovation in Portugal. And I will start by a brief presentation of the panelists I have with us. So I have Maria do Rosário Partidário, who is coordinating the participatory project for the process for the strategic assessment of research and innovation. Then Carolina Nogueira, Vice Director of PLANAPP, and PLANAPP is the entity who is coordinating this whole process. Then I have Luís Ferreira, President of the Board of Directors of the Portuguese Universities. Orlando Rodrigues, who is member of the board of the Polytechnic Institutes in Portugal. Then Ana Casaca, who is leading the innovation process in GALP, but she's also a member of the European Innovation Council of the European Commission. And finally, Philippe Laroux just arrived to be with us from OECD and from the Commission, who is following and evaluating the process of the reform of education, research and innovation in Portugal. So the session is mainly sought as a debate. We will have a presentation by Rosário Partidário of the process ongoing, the outputs and the next steps. Then I will give the floor to all the panelists for a very short comment, and then we will give the floor to the room, to all the participants, if you want to ask some questions. So please prepare your questions. There will only be one round of questions, very short, please, very focused, and then we come back to the panelists for replying to the discussion or adding some more. So we will have the possibility to talk, replying to the questions, and I will now straightforward passing to Rosário, and welcome Rosário, and thank you very much for your presentation.
Okay. So thank you very much, and good morning to all. I will greet everybody together. We don't have now the Minister and the Secretary of State, so be all very welcome to this session. My role today is to give you account of the work that has been developed so far, and what are the outputs that we already have, and where we are in terms of the methodology, which is in fact a strategic assessment methodology that is participatory. So the whole process aims to be very co-creative in terms of having various inputs from the whole community into what is going on. So we're really talking here about a methodology for the strategic assessment of national research and innovation priorities. Some of you might not have been in previous presentations and sessions that we had before. So, and I hope that everybody has got a good notion of the document and the methodology that was distributed or shared by all to all back in February. But I will simply remind of some of the key elements that need to be well recognized and put in place, because they are drivers of what we are doing in this assessment process. And the first is to remember what is that needs to be decided. In other words, what is the decision problem? And the decision problem relates budget allocation, so decision on how much the percentage of budget that needs to be allocated to 3 different axes of the AI square, which regards the research and development areas, the strategic domains, and the innovation promotion, the units for promotion of innovation. So that's the first decision problem. Second, how many strategic domains should we have? And which of those should be strategic domains? And that would be that all of this will be included in the contract program between the government and AI Square. How should the budget be allocated across strategic domains, and how should the budget be allocated across research and development areas? So this is what the government or the minister has demanded from the strategic assessment process to be, for help to be decided. Now, in order to take decision on these 4 aspects, we can't simply decide on a percentage. We have to find out and explore the different conditions that, in face of existing problems and in face of future ambitions, how should we and what is that we need to consider, both in terms of criteria but also in terms of priorities, so that we can have a sound basis to, upon which we can make a contribution for this decision. That's why, even though a lot of different colleagues have been wishing to have this decision very quickly, we have to be patient, and we have to work towards the foundations, the reasons, the rationale that needs to support these decisions. For that, the methodology that is in use is very much supported on 2 main concepts. One is backcasting, and the second is foresight. So we're not using here forecasting, for example. We're using backcasting, and that means that we have to first define our ambition, establish the vision, and then come back to the present and find where are the gaps that we need to fulfill in order to reach out to the future vision. That's why we define strategic anchors right from the beginning, and these anchors include the vision for 2050, which is perfectly in line with the two brilliant speeches we heard this morning, and which in fact lead us towards this contribution of research and knowledge and this transformation into economic, social, cultural, and environmental value, and how we should get ourselves into a strong national and international network that is competitive towards reaching out and increasing the excellence that, of course, we already have a lot of excellence, but we always need to improve the existing excellence. So that's the vision for 2050. The strategic objective that comes in line with this vision and which is absolutely leading the whole process of assessment in terms of establishing the key critical decision factors and assessment criteria that will lead the assessment process of various options that will aim to face the existing problems and make us move towards the vision. So what we want is to strengthen this link between knowledge, creation, technology, development, and business innovation. And we want and make sure that both the basic knowledge, the basic research, and the applied research are both fundamental and intrinsic in all this process. The strategic pillars that have been set up before and which illustrate exactly and exemplify that the fundamental research is absolutely recognized, that we have to have a multi-annual budget, that we need to recognize societal challenges and bring them into the scene of the research that we are developing, of the promotion of different products that we have to put out into the market. So all of these have to be connected, well connected within this large spectrum and multiple networking of research and innovation. Now, what is that we are assessing? We saw what was the decision that needs to be taken. But now what we are assessing is obviously very related to the decision that needs to be taken. The research and development areas, namely options for blue sky research funding to promote interdisciplinarity, etc. So this is one of the things that needs to be assessed. What are the different options that we can have in relation to research and development areas? The strategic domains, which of them and how many do we need? And that, of course, needs to be related to existing capacities, the existing talent, existing skills, and also the public and private investment balance that we can capture to support these strategic domains, and innovation promotion unit as options for diversification of funding sources and other aspects related to its functioning. And then we need criteria for, namely, the definition of the strategic domains. And I will come back to that later on with some criteria that has already been identified. And just to share with you, not that it's closed already, because we're still in the process of discussing those criteria, discussing these options, creating these options. But there is already some findings that we can share with you. I decided again to, this is perhaps the third or fourth way of showing what's happening that we've been doing so far, because there's still questions. And I wanted to also thank very, very much at this point for all the contributions that were sent to us over this short period or 2 weeks period of consultation regarding the focus report. And there's been about 500 contributions from, of course, a short number of people, but some people sent various contributions. They are very helpful, but they need to be incorporated somehow, and they have been, and one of them, it was exactly what's going to happen after, and what is the role of the critical decision factors and assessment criteria. So in a way, this diagram tries to show a roadmap and tries to clarify to everybody what is exactly happening from the beginning to the end. We started with studies, namely from the team led by Professor Eugênio Ferreira, and also the international comparison study that was developed by PLANAPP, and upon which we're going to hear from the Vice-President of PLANAPP next to me. And based on that, and based on the initial meetings, so I have to call your attention for the, I'm not sure if this shows or helps with the pointer, no, but the top line on thematic tables, decentralized workshop, and consider it, which are the active forms of engagement that we have established in this process. And we have already, from the beginning, had several discussions with different entities. And upon those discussions, and also based on these studies, we have identified the visions, the objectives, and the decision problem. And also, even though not included there, what is the borders, the frontier of the strategic assessment with the core key themes. So that was the beginning. Based on that, we had a round of discussions across the country. We were in 5 different decentralized workshops, and based also on contributions through Consider It, we built the problem framework. You might remember, and it is available in the report in our page, in our site. And based on that problem framework, we built up the strategic assessment framework, which is formed by critical decision factors and assessment criteria. And that's where we are at the moment. We are exactly at this point in which we have shared with you 2 weeks ago the preliminary report on the focus assessment, where this strategic assessment framework was made available to all of you, and on which we received those 500 contributions. That report is now still being revised, still to accommodate, to the extent possible, the contributions that were already sent, those that were relevant for this stage, because many of the contributions sent, they will be important and they will be incorporated at later stages. So what are those later stages? Those later stages is that we are at the moment already identifying strategic options. And some of you have already sent suggestions that we can use as different possible strategic options, for example, in relation to the strategic domains. What are possible strategic domains? Or what are the reasons or the criteria upon which we have to decide or choose the strategic domains? But also in relation to other different aspects that create conditions that need to be financed so that the problems might roll on and start making progress, and we start eliminating systematic problems that we have. And then, so now we are doing this identification of strategic options, and we will move in September to assess those strategic options. And to assess those strategic options, we will use the critical decision factors and the assessment criteria. I'll come back to that when I show the table with the critical decision factors, which is still the same that was sent in the report. There was no major, in fact, there was no comments or suggestions of change. So the critical decision factors were, in a way, validated by this consultation. And the assessment criteria, there's some changes, but in any case, those have been accommodated. So we will assess the strategic options, and those strategic options, as I said, will be the conditions, the solutions that need to be put in place so that they can create conditions that need to be financed, and that's how we will consider or will have to and analyze how much of the funding needs to be allocated to each of the three dimensions to be able to make a proposal to the government. The assessment of strategic options will result in two main elements. One is the setup of the follow-up program and monitoring program, so that we make sure that ex post, so ex decision and implementation be followed by a monitoring and evaluation program, so that we get a measure, we get a notion of the impact that this strategy can create on science and innovation. That's one element. The other one is recommendations for the contract program, and that those recommendations will be incorporated presumably immediately, since the contract program needs to be signed before 1st January 27. The strategic boundaries of the assessment are the core themes that you already know, and I just wanted to call attention for this. One thing is to look at the key themes linearly, as you can see here. The other is what we need to do, which is to look at them linked together, because none of these key themes is independent of each other. And that is part of what we are doing in the strategic assessment. That's where the core team of experts from ANI and from FCT, which I really thank for the fantastic work that they're doing, they keep having to connect with each other, while each were responsible for each one of these thematic areas. So we need to, and for you as well, when you provide your comments, please keep in mind that we need to look at these themes in a connected and interlinked way. Now, I built this in order to help exactly see what are the next steps. So we have the key thematic areas, and we have the vision that influence these areas. And this was our starting point right from the February methodology. And we have come up with a problem framework, which I am not showing here because it's unreadable in this PowerPoint, but I have to thank to Rui Munha for this contribution that he sent to me to help look at the various items there are, or various problems and various potentialities and ambitions as well that are in the problem framework. And mind you, the problem framework is a result of all the contributions received, both in the thematic tables, and I, again, take this opportunity to thank to all the experts and the coordinators and the moderators of the thematic tables that have been doing a fantastic work, the Considerate and everybody that has been contribution online to those comments, and the decentralized workshops, in which I thank very much to the pivot persons in each of the areas that we visit, and all the participants that have been coming together to those workshops. It is out of this work that we have been able to put these ideas together. I'm not going to detail them, but I left them sufficiently, for time sufficient for you to be able to read. I just wanted to call attention for one thing. The precarious, unpredictable careers, as you can see, is in the problem framework, because I had a comment at least that said that I was not recognizing it. It is there. So please read the documents we send before you send your comments. So based on this problem framework, we have created the critical decision factors. And I'll come back to that to show you. So we have done the focus phase, which was the first phase. Now what comes next? Next, well, we have the critical decision factors, and so here you can see the critical decision factors are still the same: science, research, excellence, science and innovation as development driver, SNCTI as organization and coordination, so the governance component, stable and diversified funding, and human resources and infrastructures. Not having received any changes or suggestions for other critical decision factors, I think we can consider it validated by the community as being the main priorities that we have for developing this strategic assessment. And then we had the assessment criteria. And in that case, we had some changes. We didn't have much on the first CDF1, but we had on CDF2, because on the first critical assessment criteria, we recognize national and regional contribution to competitiveness, productivity, and internationalization. And we have in the last one, which is the other one where there was more changes, we separated talent attraction from jobs generation and stabilization of human resources together with infrastructure advantage. So these were differences or changes that we have introduced based on your contributions. So what will happen next? Next, we have to choose the options. Options give us directions. So the options we choose will imply different outcomes. And in order to choose these options, we will use, we will develop that, and we are at the moment in the process of, through the thematic tables, identifying those options. Options for funding allocation for research and development, for the UPI, for the strategic domains, and for identifying the strategic domains. And then once we have these options and the assessment of these options with the critical decision factors, we can move on to propose. How are we identifying the options? We must consider the needs and conditions that will allow us to meet the objectives. And that's what we're going to assess. To what extent a given option A or given option B or option C will better allow us to reach out to the vision and to the strategic objectives. Examples: what are the most critical societal challenges? There's several suggestions. If we take them all, we might end up with 20 or 30. We cannot deal strategically with so many strategic domains. So we have to cluster them. We have to organize them in a way that everybody feels that they have been recognized, yet we have a smaller set of strategic domains that we can work with. Do we need more human resources or critical mass? What are the priority strategic domains that better trigger the existing and potential talent and excellence? And then we need to select also criteria. This is the set of criteria for identification of strategic domains that I mentioned. For example, demonstrated critical mass. Do we have enough human resources to develop the research or not? Do we have competitive advantage in relation to other countries in the world or European? Is it a society, is it relevance for the society, for Portugal? Is it sufficiently disruptive in terms of the potential for value creation? And based on that, we'll have to make choices. And these choices will be done using exactly the framework for strategic assessment and also the trend analysis that will be developed now, here at the moment. It's the next step, together with the identification and the assessment of strategic options. We will be developing the more deep and sound diagnosis that many of you have been asking for, but it is now the moment to do. before we then come up with recommendations. So we finalize this process by having a choice of what are the options that should contribute or should be the object of funding or the object of choice for the strategic domains, and then propose the follow-up program and the monitoring program to carry on together with implementation. Just very quickly show of what has been the participatory process. We have been and will be in 10 different sites in the country, and country as a whole, not only the continent. I will not detail because of time. We have had already different and many contributions from different organizations, from the thematic tables, from the regional workshops, and with questions that try to build upon what are the potentials, what are the capacities existing and the needs existing in these different regions. These are just images of those regions. When we are calling and expecting with great enthusiasm the various bottom-up initiatives that are being carried on, and some of which are presented in this encontro. This is just a final slide to show you the many participations we had so far. I know this has been very intensive, but I thank you very, very much to all of you. And to all of those that are not in this room, that are maybe following us online, or maybe not following us at the moment, but have been contributing with various ideas and various aspects that are very much built upon the strategic assessment that we are developing. And basically, this is what I wanted to share with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Rosário, for making the synthesis of this very comprehensive and multi-step process. I know it's difficult to make it in a short time. I thank you very much. And then we go on to the speakers we have here in the panel. So I start with Carolina, Vice Director of PLANAPP.
Thank you for the introduction. So PLANAPP is Portugal's Center for Planning and Evaluation of Public Policies, and we have been working with different public institutions and their ministries in designing, implementing, monitoring and evaluating public policies. Specifically in this project, we have been working together with Professor Rosário Partidário in developing this assessment framework. Today, I will bring you three main findings or lessons from the ongoing international benchmark we have been developing on research and innovation ecosystems. So the first main message is that there is no best model, but there are some shared principles that the systems or the countries have in common. And these are, for instance, a combination of bottom-up excellence-driven research with the definition of top-down strategic priorities, as well as a regular revision of these priorities as a function of societal or scientific change. The second message is that it matters how governments choose these priorities, and so effective priority setting usually combines some principles or some techniques that have been mentioned already, but namely foresight, assessment of national capabilities or strengths, engagement with the different stakeholders, so public administration, the academia, businesses, and the civil society as a whole. And in the end, it requires transparent political decision-making. So the scene we are setting, or we have been setting for the last few months, is consistent with these shared principles. And finally, regarding the priorities that have been chosen or defined by the countries and their funding allocations. We have some preliminary insights that countries tend to converge on essentially 3 to 4 main domains, namely critical and digital technologies, the green transition, health and life sciences, and defense and security. Although, obviously, there are some other domains, and countries differ. These are just the common areas. Regarding funding allocation, it seems to differ substantially between countries. There is some heterogeneity. We can go from either around 20% to 60% as a whole of public funding devoted to top-down strategic priorities, but we are still researching and investigating more on this topic to be more confident with this analysis. As you can imagine, it's not very easy to compare these decisions between countries, but we will have our international benchmark, its main lessons also published soon, and you may analyze it and contribute it. So now we are eager to move on to the following phases, as Rosário also mentioned, involving the whole community and continuously sharing the full findings of our work. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Carolina. We move on to the next speaker, Luís Ferreira from Group.
Thank you. Good morning to each and every one of you, and thank you for this invitation. I was only given 3 minutes, so I will try to be very efficient as my colleague, and I will follow my notes to be as efficient as possible. I would like to start by highlighting the genuine effort behind this consultation. Several hundred contributions, as we have seen already, were collected through meetings, thematic panels and workshops across the country, and creating a strong basis for the next phase. So, Rosário, Partidário, thank you for this effort, and I hope you are very successful for the good of all of us. And this meeting is itself an important example of this, so thank you. With that in mind, I would like to share a few suggestions, some doubts, online with the contributions made by Group, the Board of Rectors, and of several Portuguese universities. Every science and innovation system relies on a balance between bottom-up and top-down funding, and Portugal is not an exception. Our research system already makes extensive use of top-down funding, mostly because of the important role of the European and cohesion funds, rather than a result of deliberate policy choice. Strategic planning is therefore very essential. And strategic priorities should complement, not replace, competitive bottom-up funding and research. To this end, we suggest the inclusion of a kind of a funding safeguard to ensure that bottom-up funding continues to grow on nominal terms, preserving the present balance between academic freedom and political intervention. What may appear unnecessary at the moment may prove essential in the future. Universities, and I would like to emphasize that, are the long-term counterparts of research systems and remains highly dependent on short-term funding. Portuguese universities sustain research careers, preserve knowledge in key areas, manage scientific and interface infrastructures, and have helped create thousands of startups worldwide. I think so that AI Square should therefore align also its incentives with university strategies, with respect and respecting their autonomy. Universities are more than just another stakeholder. They cannot be in the same line as we've seen in the documents as citizens or other stakeholders. They should be emphasized their role. They are the institutions that anchor and sustain our research ecosystem over time. It is also essential for us, or at least in my view, to clarify the expected sources of funding. At present, this remains largely unclear. Assuming that AI Square will preserve FCT existing commitments without a significant increase in state budget funding, it will inevitably rely more on European and other external funds. Making this explicit would help clarify the thematic and territorial constraints associated with these funding sources and differentiate what is the national research strategy from cohesion policy, which is driven by regional priorities and authorities also. Another thing that concerns us is that the AI Square will combine three core missions: research funding, innovation, and operation of Portugal digital research infrastructures through FCCN. And in the documents that we have seen so far, the proposed methodology largely replaced the first two, but ignores the third. Probably I'm wrong, since FCCN supports almost every university and research institution. Its activity should be recognized as a key mission of AI Square, backed by a clear long-term investment strategy in this area. And also, and it connects with the last one, artificial intelligence is surprisingly absent from the methodology. AI is becoming a foundational capability across all domains, rather than another research field. It's not just a simple research field. The strategy should clearly define the role of AI Square in line with Portugal's national AI agenda, European initiatives such as AI factories and AI for science. Well, because my time's finished, or almost finished, I believe this is a good starting point, and we are in the right position, so it's time to do everything. Broad participation is one of the strengths of this process. Thank you for that. I also place a greater responsibility, this kind of process, in the pen holder to balance the many perspectives that you have received. Public participations enrich the process, but it should not dilute the ownership and the accountability of the final strategic choices. Also, the extent of public intervention is itself a strategic choice, and it should remain explicit throughout the process. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, all of you. We asked for this short, very short time to very important messages, but I think you are going in the right way, keeping the time and giving the messages. So Orlando Rodrigues from the Polytechnic Institutes, please.
Okay, thank you very much, Teresa, and thank you very much for the invitation. Well, first of all, I would like to highlight the importance of what we are doing here with this process. So it's a very interesting process that involves all the scientific community, and we are asking to give our opinion about what we think that it should be the strategic domains and how many money we should put in some of these strategic domains, and also how many budget we should put in research and development areas. So this participation and this broad participation that involves all the scientific community, all the country, I think it's very interesting. It's very new for in the definition of our policies. Well, just 2 or 3 observations. The first one, it's about the compatibility about these choices that we are doing in research and development, in the strategic domains and the research and development areas, the compatibilization of these choices with the regional smart policies. So I think this compatibilization it's very important because smart regional policies are one of the more important policies in Europe today. So it's not possible to choose a policy for science and research in the country without taking account of regional smart specialization. So I think it's very important to evolve regions, to evolve. Now we have in our region responsibles for innovation and for education in all of our regions. We have very important regional policies, regional smart specialization policies, and I think it's very important to compatibilize and to put in dialogue all these two dimensions. The second observation that I would like to stress is about, well, we are talking about choices and about smart specialization, national, scientific, but smart specialization. And it's very important. We need to be clever in the allocation of our scarce resources, public scarce resources. But we should give place also for the disruptive and the new areas of research and of development that appear. So it's very important, but we should also give some space to disruptive innovation, to disruptive research that could appear. So I think this dimension is also very important. Luís also talked about competitiveness, and I think this is very important also. So it's very important to make choices about policies and the allocation of funds. But I think also competitiveness in the system, it's absolutely necessary for having excellence in the system. So, of course, for competitiveness, probably we should take account also to some weakness of our systems and find ways to take in account this weakness. But the principle of competitiveness in the system, I think, it's very important. Well, another just one more brief note. It's about the global budget. Well, I think we need to put more money in research and development, and I think that is the main problem that we have. It's a historical problem of Portugal, and we need to put more money. It's so clear the relationship between the budget that we put in science and technology and development of regions, of companies, of countries. So it's so clear this relationship. So I can't understand why we don't have. Historically, we don't have more clever choices on that. Put more money in research and development. I think it's our main problem. Even that the amounts are been increasing in the last years, but other countries do more than we do, and we need to put more money. And also about this. The balance between public and private money that we put in research and development. Of course, we need to appeal to companies to put more money in research. We need to increase the private dimension. Okay. So I will end, strategies for put more money for companies. It's very important. So
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Thank you. Okay. Yes, Anna, you will be very short and concise, I'm sure.
So first of all, thank you so much for the invite. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's a pleasure to see and participate in the process that we are doing. So my intervention will be mainly about the choices, how we can turn these choices that we are doing in capability and impact. And let me start with one thing. Every time that we talk about these topics, that comes always to my mind. The strategic domains that we are deciding are not simply areas that we are funding. They defined, for me, the scientific, technological, and industrial capability that we want Portugal to build. And having that in mind, I would like to highlight 3 priorities. The first one is strategic domains must be managed as active portfolios, not stated risks. We need stable direction, we need flexible execution, and we need a clear leadership. But of course, strategic focus must also protect scientific freedom. The second priority, we need a complete pathway from research to scale. And this, I will just stop saying some numbers regarding Portugal participation at the European Innovation Council. Portugal has 121 participations in the EIC Pathfinder project, putting us among the top 6 countries. And I would say again, the top 6 countries. So as we know, the process to get the grant from the IC is very, very difficult. So this is a strong signal of scientific excellence. But the next stages remain much smaller. We only have 10 participations in the EIC transition and only 16 companies supported through the EIC accelerator. So let me just share that for me, what we have in Portugal is not a lack of potential, it is a need of stronger bridges. We need more bridges between the research and the proof of concept, from proof of concept to demonstration, from demonstration to first contract, and one thing that is very important, from the first contract to European and global scale. The bottleneck is increasing between the pilot and the first customer, and between the first customer and the scale. And this is where bankability becomes crucial. A technology may be scientifically ready, but without validated performance, standards, contracts, and predictable demand, it remains difficult to finance. Bankability is not created by capital alone, it is created by confidence. So from the EIC experience again, €1 invested by the EIC fund brings leverage 3.5 euros from the private sector. So this brings me to the third priority, that for me funding is not enough. We also need to create demand for innovation. And just a short note, public procurement represents 14% of the European GDP, approximately 2 trillion a year. A first public contract can validate the technology, can reduce risks, attract private investment, and can actually open international markets. So it's not only the private, the public sector can therefore be an intelligent first customer and drive the development of ecosystem. And to finish, just to highlight again that for me, each strategic domain needs to connect research, demonstration, regulation, procurement, industrial adoption in Portugal and Europe, passion capital, and of course, open the door to the European markets. Innovation does not scale through isolated instruments. We need to scale the research and innovation that we have in the country through connected system so that we can turn the talent and the know-how that we have into impact, into innovation, because what we really want is really to strengthen the ability of Europe and Portugal in terms of scientific, technology, and economic sovereignty. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and last we have our comments from Philippe Laroux from OECD. Philippe.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Teresa, for inviting me to this panel. Thank you to the panelists. Thank you to the Ministry of Education, Science and Innovation for very good cooperation across the years. As Teresa said, I'm part of this commission who is OECD commission that is monitoring the reforms, the ongoing reforms in Portugal. And in the pool of reforms that we're looking at, there is this considerable endeavor to select priorities. So let me say a word about this. I've just read the papers. I didn't follow the process, but what I can see from what I've read, let me say a word about that. So first, as Carolina said, there are different ways to do that, and we can see countries have different approaches. Some are more politically driven, of course, based on consultations of experts and stakeholders in different areas, but then it's up to the political and high-level administrative officials to select the priorities. As you can expect, this is pragmatic, this is more efficient in a way, it goes faster, it's less cumbersome maybe, but it can be criticized for being insufficiently transparent, for being subject to political capture, not very always grounded on rational motives, and therefore those selected areas that are might run the risk of being of lacking legitimacy and buying from actors. Other countries like Portugal have chosen a more structured approach, very engineered. We've seen that with the slides and the presentation from Rosário. So it's elaborate. It's very elaborate. It's based on a methodology that involves several steps and concepts. So it's much more reassuring in a way. It's much more rational. The problem is that it can be seen as complex, sometimes a bit too technocratic, so that is one of the risks that must be avoided. What I see that Portugal, the way Portugal navigates this second approach seems to me very well thought and balanced, with a good mix of top-down and bottom-up, which are sequenced. There is a good mix of push by research strengths and pull by usage and market opportunities. There is a good balance of international, national, and regional dimensions. One can tell it's underpinned by systemic thinking, design thinking. This is clear from the presentation. There is quite some depth into it. So, and different channels for consulting all of you. So that is really, all the ingredients for a good recipe are here. Now it will, of course, depend on the cook. I'm French. I use metaphors I can. So I particularly appreciated the assessment, this systemic and integrated analysis, as it is called in the document. It means that the assessment is not only based on substantive issues of sectors, technologies, sectors, and markets. It also includes funding. It also includes governance issues, all those enabling conditions that needs also to be considered when you select priorities, because this is, in the end, what also will determine the success or not of what you're going to do. So it mixes all those scientific, technological, institutional, human, and social dimensions, and all that is in this machinery. Again, the pilot will be also a second metaphor. The pilot will be very, very important. So let me now, just to end, raise 3 points of attention. First, and this is based on everything we do at OECD on the governance of research and innovation system and the current trends. One point of attention is that these priorities that we are now talking about should not be only AI square priorities. The title of the presentation from Rosário says national priorities. This is what they should be, national priorities. Of course, AI square is a key actor and funder in this system, so it will be the first client, the first user of those priorities. But that should be national priorities. Why? Because what is at stake here is not only about new patents, new publications, not even new products. It's about really solving societal and economic issues, mobilizing science and innovation for that, and that will depend on much more types of interventions than just AI square. Even considering its wider remit, we will need much more than that. This is about behavioral change, it's about regulatory change, it's about different types of economic incentives that is not in the pool of interventions of AI Square. So just to say these are national priorities, and that should also drive the behavior of other administration, regulatory authorities, and other areas. Second point of attention is that more than just domains, what is important is what will happen within these domains. This is what directionality is about. And so these strategic domains, once we have set those strategic domains, that doesn't set the course of action in itself. And the level of funding that will be determined based on that will not be sufficient. It will not respond to all the questions we have. So of course it's important to set commensurate resources according to those selected priorities, but that's, it should go, it's just the first step. So what we've seen in other countries in different ways is that within there is the first step of setting priorities, which can be most of the time rather non-surprising and rather large. We will see what granularity there will be in your strategic domains, but usually they're pretty large. But what the countries do, and what is even more interesting, is that within those priorities, then they set a process for co-developing strategic agenda, what the different actors will do, what are the pathways, what are the different objectives, and what are the pathways to reach those objectives. So those priorities should be set as platform, institutional space for collective actions. It's not only about setting some categories and then some funding into these priorities. It's about setting some devising, co-developing some roadmaps, because it's about avoiding mixed messages, it's about leveraging synergies, avoiding overlaps, and more generally, as I said, it's about coordinating all the different actors and especially mobilizing ecosystems. The Nordic, Sweden, Denmark, Norway have done that pretty well, but we see that now increasingly in regions, building on S3, smart specialization strategies, which have been criticized for not being directional enough. Now there is this new layer of coordination and orientation within that. So that was, again. And the third point of attention is about the articulation between R&D areas and strategic domains. Merging two agencies, research agencies and innovation agencies, is a nice first step as well, but it's not the final solutions, because silos can very rapidly, you can find those silos back into the same agency or the same ministry. So the question is, what type of instruments are you going to set that bring together, that create that continuity between knowledge, research, innovation? How are you going to blend the different teams, the different units and the different organizations? What type of practice you will set? That is really what is most important. There is some experience with that, with UKRI in the UK. Now Research Ireland is doing research in Ireland. They're doing it as well. Slovenia has started merging their agencies. So just to say that the whole process should aim to induce real directionality and support collective action within those priority domains. That's really the key. It's not only here to shield yourself against complaints and possible criticism. It's really to, as I said, platform for collective action, and don't just stop with a merger and a determination of domains and the funding. This is just the first step. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Philippe, for highlighting this need for the long-term process to continue. We are late in time. We started already late, but we said we will give the floor to the audience, so we will give just for very few questions. Please, those who want to raise a question, please introduce yourself and be very, very short and focused in what you want to say. I see a hand here, and another there, and that's it, I think. Yeah. We have 4 now. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Claudio Sunkel, I3S, Porto. And the question is to Anna, and it has to do with what she said. And I'll try to phrase it properly. So how do we cross the gap between being very good at a Pathfinder project, but be very modest in igniting the economic valorization of the results? What are the enabling conditions, for example, that make that process to be successful in the Netherlands? And I'll make the point that is not all the northern countries, but specifically due to the significant funding of Novo Nordisk in Denmark, that things have changed significantly. And is the lack of a real venture funding capital in Portugal a major drawback for a successful transfer to the economy?
Okay, thank you very much. Then we had another question there. Can you provide the mic? No, please wait for the mic, please.
Next. Thank you. I'm Professor Castellan-Lawless from University of Michigan in the United States. So I can see that, when you have a piece of science or a piece of technology, it's easy to predict the outcomes. But 5-year long-term plans are difficult, let alone 25-year long plans, because the more abstract it becomes, or the more rational it becomes, the more unintended consequences are going to appear. And so I'm particularly interested in you saying something about this regular reviews, because it seems to me that you need much more than regular reviews, because everything is going to be completely different from what you rationalized in the beginning. So a lot of money is going to be spent with making it more rational, but it's not going to produce better outcomes 25 years later. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Then there was, yeah, please. Mr. Patias. Regular reviews.
Okay. Rui Salgado, University of Évora. In my opinion, scientific research cannot be solely dependent on short-term competitive funding. And in this regard, I will ask if there are some strategic vision regarding the existence under the A2 framework of multi-annual program contracts with, namely with higher education institutions, which would enable the institutions to sustain their own strategies and contribute also to national sovereignty. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And then another one there, and I think that's it. Yeah.
Good morning, Miguel Reis, Instituto Superior Técnico. I have a very short question. I hope you can answer it. Everything looks very nice strategically, a lot of talking of areas, a lot of talking of research domains, but I missed one key point. Going back to the idea of the kitchen problem, I missed the eggs. You need the eggs to make the omelets. What about human resources? How many do we have? How many do we have in which areas? What is the installed capacity of human resources in Portugal? I think you forgot that.
Okay, I think that's it for now. That was the hands raising. So we go. There's one more. We take just one more. And then it goes. Review, regular review of the process. No. Okay. There's another one coming up.
Good morning. Kátia Pesquita, Faculdade de Ciências da Universidade de Lisboa. I'm interested to learn how you look to other countries and how they organize their R&D investments, and what lessons can we learn from other successful countries, and what is different about the Portuguese reality and that we need to face differently to be successful. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we go on now to the panel again. And there was one first question to Anna. Would you like to reply to that one? Then I will give the floor to Rosário, then Carolina, and yeah, I will conclude.
So I would, first of all, Claudius, thank you so much for the question. So I would start with 2 to 3 points that I think I would highlight from the experience that I'm having at the European Innovation Council. The first one is we need to continue to train people that understand how to value research results. During a lot of time, we actually had a specific program that would sponsor the universities and the technology sectors, the institutions, to educate and train people. I was one of them. more than 20 years ago. But we need to continue to train people in the university and be able to have dedicated teams to understand research. But not only, the research itself, we all have that responsibility too. We have to be able to learn what type of results can have impact, and in our day-to-day decisions, whenever we do an Horizon Europe proposal, we can bring SMEs as a researcher, right? So it is starting to say that it's not only the responsibility of the government or the responsibility of Brussels to create incentives. It's our responsibility too to bring small and medium companies, to bring corporates, to bring startups into the projects and learn how to do this path and learn together to create the ecosystem here in Portugal. If you look at Spain, the process that they have, when you look at the Horizon Europe results, it's impressive when you compare with us. And because I have two hats, in Spain, I always, since you have one scientific research institution that applies for a proposal, they'll bring that. That's the second one, and I'll be short. The second one is, the second initiative is a fast track in terms of public procurement. And I have to tell you, even in the private sector, the company where I'm leading, the innovation department, we change the procurement process, and now we have 30% of the startups that work with us, that have a pilot with us, in the end, sign a contract, a commercial agreement contract. And this was basically one internal process that we decided to do. We decided to start buying more disruptive technology. So a fast track in terms of procurement, it is important, and in terms of the instruments as a whole, I'm a believer that we need to have an umbrella in terms of instruments, and I think with this merge, we will see more instruments that are related not only with the research, but are related to with bringing those results to the market.
Thank you. Thank you, Ana. Thank you. I will now give the floor to Rosário.
Yeah. Just very short answers to short questions as well. First of all, in relation to review, the last phase is follow-up. I said we're going to build a program for follow-up, and that will be established there, how the review is going to be conducted. So I cannot give you any indications now because we haven't discussed that yet. As far as human resources are concerned, I think you forgot to look into the document and even to look at my presentation, because human resources are part of one of the 5 critical decision factors. So they are not ignored. And there is an initial study developed by Professor Eugênio Ferreira and his team, which is most about human resources. It's all there. Just need to look at that if you want. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Rosário. And Carolina, briefly about this international benchmarking.
So as I mentioned, we looked at research and innovation ecosystems in several different countries, and we also looked at the European Union as a whole. And what I brought here today were the commonalities. Obviously, there is a wide range of options, either in governance, in funding, in institutionalization, and now we will be in the process of, together with the trend analysis that we'll do, put together these lessons with the picture, or the full and deep picture we have about Portugal, and to be inspired by that exercise. That was the purpose of the international benchmarking. So there are good and bad lessons, and it's still a work in progress, and we may take, we may have inspiration for what we are building here.
Okay, thank you very much. There was also one question about the multi-annual funding. I think we all agree this will be the goal, this is needed. We are starting with the 5-year contract of the agency, and hopefully we can manage to have this multi-annual funding for the structural research which is needed. So I think I close now. I thank the panelists very much, and very sorry for pressing you so much because you had so much to say, but hopefully this is inspiring also for the rest of these 2 days. Thank you for the audience, and I apologize the next panel because we are late, but we started already very late. So we close here, and thank you very much.
Thank you to our moderator and distinguished speakers, Moderator Teresa Pinto Correia, and the speakers Maria do Rosário, Partidário, Carolina Nogueira, Luís Ferreira, Orlando Rodrigues, Ana Casado, and Philippe Leroux for their valuable contributions and for sharing their insights with us. We will now continue with our program.